Bill O'Brien is bringing in two new quarterbacks, and it could be the biggest gamble he has taken in his tenure at Boston College.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. I've been covering Boston College for over a decade. If you're looking for Boston College news, analysis, and details on your Eagles, you are in the right place. Locked On Boston College is a free daily Boston College podcast available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. On today's show, basketball, again, another disappointing loss, another cry for me for someone to do something. We're going to look at the defense for BC football as they retool in the portal. I think they're going to look a lot better, and I'll explain why. And Bill O'Brien is going to take the biggest gamble of his career at Boston College with his quarterback spot. I'm going to explain what that looks like and why it is a bit of a risk. But today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The college football playoff is here, and FanDuel is the best place to get into the action all playoff long. So visit FanDuel.com to get your college football playoff profit boost every game. Now, BC is bringing in two quarterbacks from the transfer portal to replace Dylan Lonergan and Shaker Rising. They brought in Mason McKenzie out of Saginaw Valley, a D2 school, and Grayson Wilson, a quarterback from Arkansas. Now, as I've said for a while, you now have four quarterbacks, none of them throwing a single pass at the Power 4 level. And I know from listening to Bill and talking to different people, they are very, very excited about Mason McKenzie. You watch his film, you see what he can do with his legs. He's got that something to him that you can't quantify that makes him a winner. You just watch him. Like you see what he does, and you can compare it to NFL quarterbacks that do things with their legs that help extend something that you really didn't have last year, especially with Dylan Lonergan. And I get that piece. Like there's an explosiveness to him. If he can translate that to the Power 4 level, you found something, right? But the bigger question then is, you just went off a 2-10 season. You needed to find stability. And you're bringing in a guy that hasn't done much of anything at a level before this last month, has anyone heard of Saginaw State? No. Or Saginaw Valley, excuse me. I even get the name wrong. You do, though. It seems to me like it's a high reward, high risk quarterback spot here that BC's putting themselves in. If this works out like the coaching staff thinks it's going to, you have just fixed your quarterback position and you're taking your offense in a completely different direction, because this is the complete antithesis of Dylan Lonergan. Bringing in Mason McKenzie, even in Grayson Wilson, you're bringing in two quarterbacks that do things very differently. I almost look at Mason McKenzie, and you look at his stats and what he does, he's more to me like a Tommy Castellanos than either Grayson James or Dylan Lonergan. Now, they're still different, but that surprises me. That surprises me that BC would go down that route, because it just seems to me that the offense that Bill has done here has always been about making your reads, making quick, smart decisions, and moving the ball. When Dylan Lonergan was at his best, that was working effectively. It to me seemed almost like they have to completely strip this offense and change it to the skill sets of the two guys you're bringing in. Now, Grayson Wilson, you look at his high school stats and you're saying, okay, he can do both. Like I think he threw for 71% in high school, but obviously Power 4 football is very different, right? I wonder how much they're going to have to change this offense to make it work, because in my opinion, unless there's something that they see on tape that they think they can tweak, you look at what Mason McKenzie does, and you think to yourself, okay, he's not. If you force him to stand in the pocket and make his reads, that's basically stripping the essence of what makes him. When you watch the film, what makes him look as good as he does there. So you have to let him do what you didn't let Castellanos really do, because remember, Castellanos in 2023, when he was here, when Jeff Hafley was here, was most effective when he was improvising and moving with his legs. They pushed him into trying to make more reads. He kind of almost lost that explosiveness. It was more in his head, it seemed like. And then all of a sudden, he was completely ineffective. With McKenzie, you're going to have to let him do some of this stuff. You can't box him in. So this is a big gamble. My hope, and I think BC Nation's hope, is that with McKenzie, you're going to have to change this offense. You're going to let him do these types of things and say to yourself, yeah, we went 2-10 trying to run a pro style offense with one of our quarterbacks. It didn't work. College football is very different now. We need to upgrade and modernize our offense to fit the needs of what we brought in. So I think that's a big piece. And I go back to this being a gamble. Let's go, why this is a gamble. O'Brien had the opportunity to go the safe route. He had multiple quarterbacks that were interested in the school. We heard about the visits from certain guys like Devin Brown, and there was other guys that were linked to BC. And I think they could have got more visits, and I think they probably did. You just didn't hear about it. Instead of going the safe route where you could have got somebody who came in and ran your old system, you tried something different. And that is a gamble. That by essence, that's what it is. You, instead of going the safer route and doing what you did and hoping that everything around it changed, you are going in a completely different route, one that the staff completely believes in. And this is going to be where where the rubber hits the road here, and they're going to have to figure out if this works or not. But they're going to have to go down a different road because that's what they chose to do. And the staff, you hear them. I mean, again, I go back to what Bill O'Brien said. And you saw the quote from Mason McKenzie, the one that got deleted. It was everywhere. That the spot was his. Like, they believe that this is the kid. They believe that he is going to fix this and that they can do an offense that works for him. So I am fascinated with this gamble because if it does work, they're going to look smart. They're going to look very smart. Like DiBiase, Long, and O'Brien, hey, they adjusted, they figured something out, and they made it work. If it doesn't work, it could be really tough. This could be a really rough season if this doesn't work. So, of course, hope springs eternal. They're hoping and they're believing in everything that's going on right now. But they're going to have to show that these two quarterbacks, because you have Grayson Wilson, who, again, has never played. He at least with Mason McKenzie, he's played collegiate snaps. You go back to what O'Brien said on his podcast with Mita Perel, and he said, he said that you're watching a D2 quarterback in the college football playoffs at that time, at an elite level with Trinidad Chambliss. Now, Trinidad Chambliss to me is a unicorn. Like, you don't get many Trinidad Chamblisses out of D2, but I also go back to BC's done it too before. Paul Peterson did it. And if you're a BC fan listening to this show, you know what's happened. But again, I don't want to, I hope this is not just an outlier situation and that BC has found something here. It's hard for me to say, though, that it's not a gamble for BC. This is a bit of a risk. Instead of going the route where you could have just done what you've done and hope that everything else kind of clicks, you went in a completely different route. So this is a gamble for BC, and this is I think gonna really define this staff, because if they fail again, what are we going to be talking about next year? It's going to get even harder to bring in transfers. It's going to make it harder on the staff and their stability if it doesn't work. But if it does work, it shows you that the staff does know what they're talking about. The staff has the right evaluations, and they were able to do something and get that kind of quarterback that could change Boston College. That's the gamble that's going on here, and that's what they're going to have to look at. Now, in a moment, the defense has changed. It kind of had to, and I'll explain why I think it's going to be better in 2026. The college football playoff is here, and FanDuel is giving all customers more ways to get in on the action every single day of the playoffs. Because right now, every football playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost waiting for them in the app. This is what I love about it. I love it because the profit boost pack waiting for you. You open it up. There's all sorts of different winnings that you can add. You can take a shot on the underdog, ride with your favorite. You can add it to make a parlay. I love the way that Indiana's looking. I think they're going to beat Miami pretty heartily here. But who knows? Maybe you disagree with me. So go to FanDuel. It's the best place to get in the action all playoff long. Visit FanDuel.com to get your college football playoff profit boost every game day. Are you a diehard Locked On Boston College fan? Because I know you are. If you're listening to this, you love your Boston College sports. And if you want to take your fandom to the next level, you need to become part of our Everyday Club. Our Everyday Club, has two tiers. One, you can get ad-free access to our shows. You don't have to listen to my ad reads. You can also get a access to our Discord. We're starting to build up. We got some BC fans. It's like a chat. Like, your favorite group chat you have on text that you talk BC sports with. Think about that, but with a whole bunch of them and me throwing in there a little bit as well. You have that. You get all that. And there's the everyday or all access tier, which is like the creme de la creme. If you want to really take your fandom to the next level. Bonus content. I've sent out 2 bonus episodes, 2 10-minute episodes this week. You get Discord. You get, as I said, ad-free. You get merch. You get texting to me. You get to text with me if you have questions, if you have a comment. We're going to be doing special episodes where we're going to be doing some special things throughout the week. I mean, in this next month, you need to join up. The details are in the show notes. If you are a diehard BC fan, this is something you got to think about, man. I hope to see you guys all there. Locked On Boston College, AJ Black here of Eagle Insider. And again, join that Everydayers Club. I think you'll enjoy it. Secondly, let's talk about this defense, because BC's defense last year was bad. Really, really bad. And it was completely broken. I think we've all talked about it ad nauseum, that they could not get any pressure without absolutely selling out on their defense to get things going. And your young back end was not good enough to stop it. And it just cycled over and over and over again. Unless you played Syracuse, and then you look like you were the 86 Bears. So let's look at what they've done. I think BC, my point of this, my take, is that they've done quite a bit to improve their defense, and they're going to be decent to solid this year. Will they be great? I don't think so. But I think they're going to be solid. The biggest move of all of this is getting KP Price back. This to me was the shockingest move of the offseason, given how BC lost almost, well, at the end of the day, they're going to lose half of their roster. I figured a veteran who's been around a lot, it was going to be tough to keep him here because his buddy Omar Thornton left, and a lot of the vets were gone. I thought KP Price was a foregone conclusion when all this was happening to go. Credit to the staff, they kept him here. Getting him back and keeping him at strong safety at his position and not playing him at linebacker is going to be huge next year. You don't have to move him around. I mean, you can. That's the joy of having a little flexibility with KP. But you don't have to, and you can keep him more into what makes him really good, which is a very good, strong safety. That's the biggest piece to me. The second piece is I think the talent in terms of the pass rush has improved. You lost Edwin Kalenki, who's a upperclassman who I don't think had a single sack and played about 700 snaps or 500 snaps last year. He played a ton and I don't think he had any. And I look at him and he's gone. You lost Quintavious Hutchins, who was good, but you brought in Kris Wilson. Kris Wilson from Georgia. I think if you watch him, he's a little bit on the raw side, but he has tools that make him the best pass rusher you've had since Donovan Ezeraku. Will he be Donovan Ezeraku? I don't think so, but he will be very good. You have him. You brought Demetrius Ballard. I say similar-ish things. I think his ceiling is a little lower, but you have another pass rusher there. And all you got to do is have Jordan Thomas, their defensive line coach, really kind of hone their skills because they're both good at it. You're just going to need to get them a little bit more fine-tuned. I think they're going to be better. That right there is where I think things are at. Then you go to that next level, the linebackers. You lost Bam Crouch. He didn't do anything this year. Like, he didn't play. I don't know. I can't consider him a loss because he wasn't part of that defense. He played the Notre Dame game and in the first 2 games, and that was about it. So to say that you lost a lot of talent on linebacker, you lost Owen McGowan, And some smaller role players and injured guys like Jalen Blackwell never played. Bryce Steele was, he had his health thing. I don't want to ever say anything ill because what he did to get here was incredible. But you're adding in Anthony Filano, who's played quite a bit, and Bodie Cahoon, who is ready to be that next guy. There's questions there. Obviously, neither of the guy, neither like Polano, hasn't been the guy yet, and he was not put in as a starter by the end of the last year. But I got to think that you brought in two linebackers that are ready to go, adding on to the Griffin Collinses and Kamori Dixons, who are starting to develop even more. The linebackers have to be better. They're going to be better than they were last year. No disrespect to Owen McGowan, who played his butt off. But you have these new guys, you're going to get better there. Defensive tackle position. You're losing Ced McConnell, who is fine. He's absolutely replaceable. And I honestly look at a guy like KJ Sampson, and you have something that could replace that pretty easy, in my opinion. And you lost Quan Williams, who had his moments too. But you brought in, the kid from Colorado, and as I mentioned, KJ Sampson. And your hope is that a guy like Micah Ahmed takes his next step, because he looked good, but again, he got hurt. I think defensive tackle, you're also getting the biggest name back. I think the biggest name that you're hopefully getting back is Owen Stein. Now, we haven't had confirmation that he's definitely coming back, but he's not in the portal, so I'm assuming he's coming back because I believe he gets a medical red shirt. They're probably just waiting for the confirmation on that. Your defensive tackle position will be better. So, and all that is better. You go to the second level. You have Syer Torrance back. Syer Torrance was out all of last year. He played 2 games, I think. 2 or 3 games. This was supposed to be your CB1, CB2, if you want to consider Amari Jackson. You have him out there. You put him out there with a, Max Tucker or an Ashton Cunningham. That's your cornerbacks. I'm a little worried about that second cornerback position because hopefully Cunningham will be that guy. Tucker played with a broken elbow. He was really hurt. So corners, and then you bring in Kevin Humes at the slot. You don't need to play a really raw learning TJ Green. No disrespect for Green. He had his moments last year, but you're bringing in a veteran there. All of this together, you see, like there's no spot on that defense where I said they got worse, other than maybe losing Q. But I think what you brought in is better than Q. I think they'll get better than Q. And as a whole, that edge position, when you added, more seasoning for an Ela Boykin and a Favor Bate, I think they're going to be better. Now it's going to be up to Ted Roof to fix all this. This is his job, right? And there's a lot of skepticism about him. He's kind of a mercenary. He plays 1 year, or coaches 1 year in a lot of his spots, and then he's gone. His defenses have been up and down. Hopefully he's, being and doing this for years. This is the kind of situation he can come in and he can fix this. I think the defense will be better. Will it be elite? No. Will it be good? That's a different conversation. But could it be average? Which is, I think, what everyone would kill for at this point. Yes. I think they could be up to that point. So I think you can't go unless you are really a high spender in the portal. You cannot go from literally one of the worst in the country, and they were down the bottom in every statistic that you can think of, to elite in one year. You just can't do that. You can take a big jump, though, and I think that's what we're going to see this year. I think they're going to take a big jump, and I think we're going to see a much improved BC defense. Now, in our final segment, basketball. Yeah, I'm going to talk about it. And you know what? I'm sounding like I'm depressed right now. If you like to see and hear a good AJ rant, get ready because I'm about to go nuts. Locked on Boston College, AJ Black here, and it's time for a good old basketball rant. I know a lot of folks have asked me, and I keep saying this, and maybe this is your first time listening. AJ, why don't you talk more about basketball on this show? And I keep telling you, when I talk about basketball, it has nothing to do with me because people will listen to me talk about anything. Basketball is the death of my podcast. I'm a business. I'm not a charity. And when my show, I talk basketball, numbers, I'm not even kidding, will go are 75% less than when I talk about football. That's how dead this product is right now. And it couldn't be more dead than what I watched last night. Boston College got absolutely destroyed by Clemson 74-50 in Little John Coliseum in South Carolina. BC had no chance in this game. They were sloppy. They were turning the ball over. You had, Clemson's leading scorer, was it Davidson, I think his name is? Yeah, Nick Davidson with 25 points. You had BC's leading scorer being, Fred Payne, who has been a godsend this year because this team would be absolutely dead even more if he wasn't there, with 20 points of his own. But the reason I don't talk about it, it's because it's the same thing every single game. It's just a new way to just lose. Now, this game is different than some of the others because at least in some of those other games, like Louisville, they were leading, I believe, at halftime. BC was out from the beginning. They were just dead. And the issues with this team, if you go back to my episodes in June, is I looked at this roster and I said, there's not enough there. They did not do a good enough job in the portal to build a roster that could be competitive. The issue that I didn't see is that BC did a good job. Remember at the end of the season, you had all these players entering the portal, and then they did 3 different, these guys are coming back moments that obviously signed new NIL deals and they're spending good money to get here. And that was Jaden Hastings, Fred Payne, and DJ Hand. Now, Fred Payne has been great. Like, I cannot say enough good things about Fred Payne. Jaden Hastings is not much in terms of an offensive player. He'll have a good dunk here or there, but really hasn't added all that much, and he still seems really raw. And DJ Hand has been a gigantic disappointment. Now, this isn't a bag on DJ Hand episode. I'm not going to just bag on him for 5 more minutes. But look at his stats from yesterday. He played 31 minutes. And how many points did he have? 0. Goose egg. He shot it 3 times. He had 3 shots. And you know what he had more? He had 2 turnovers to 3 assists and 2 rebounds. So your star, the guy that you put your biggest NIL pot together to keep him here, gave you no points. And it's just been this kind of cycle for him this whole season. Point to me a game where you have said to yourself, oh, DJ Hand is balled out. It hasn't happened. He's had a few spots here and there, but he hasn't been that guy. And Earl Grant talked about it after the game. When you're that guy, you got to take it to that next level. Well, he hasn't been able to do that. And when you have a guy that you centered your team on having 0 points, you're going to lose every game that you play. You're not going to win another ACC game. And I don't expect him to have that bad of a game. Clemson's defense was pretty nasty in this game. But I look at DJ Hand, he's the key. If BC's going to win an ACC game, he's going to have to explode because having I think you look back and you could see the vision of at least of what Earl Grant wanted to do. He wanted to have a 2, guard system, but I think he had Fred Payne coming off the bench to begin the year, which is, don't get me started on Earl and his rotations because they don't make any sense to me. But now you look at your roster. Okay, your scoring should come from Payne and Hand. Those should be your 2 guys, and Fred Payne's doing it. DJ Hand is not. So I'm looking at it and I'm saying to myself, this is just going to continue. This is not going to stop. You haven't even played Duke. You haven't played UNC yet. I don't see BC winning an ACC. I've already said, I continue to bang this drum. Get rid of Earl Grant now. The season's completely lost. You're not going to make the playoffs. Your team is not any good. You need to, not playoffs, the tournament. You know what I mean? They're not very good, and they're just going to keep losing. Let one of the assistants show if they have, because that's a data point that you can make when you start to hire for this offseason, because he's not it. What he does, as I just said, his rotations, the way these offensive sets look, it's, the offense, the offense. The way that they move the ball is awful. It's just bad. And that was one big problem last night. The defense looked 4 steps too slow on every rotation that they made. It's just everything isn't working. Everything is broken. And just let Steve Smith or Jim Molinari, you did it with Scott Spinelli, do it again and show if not anything else, show the fans that you care. No one's showing up to these games. It's embarrassing to watch when they're at Connie Forum. There's like 300 people there. And I don't blame them. Who wants to go all the way to Boston to watch that? You're going to have, I'm sure, the Duke game or whoever they're playing at home with big, opponents are going to have bigger fan bases there, but that's all going to be in colors. So I've said this over again, and people keep telling me, why don't you just, make Brad Bates, Blake James hear about it? Please make a change. Show the fans that, going into March that you're going to make a change, because Earl Grant has not inspired anything. All it has is more apathy and more, Boston College stinks. The school doesn't belong in the ACC. We hear it over and over and over again. And there's no reason why they shouldn't be saying that, because you're not making a move when your team is dead. This is AJ Black. Thank you all for listening to Locked On Boston College. I'll be back again tomorrow. Hopefully there'll be more portal news. I've said there's a few more names that we're waiting on. We'll have it all here. We're still waiting for that running backs coach, and we're going to have a lot more news coming up. So make sure to hit that like and subscribe button on Locked On BC to make it part of your daily routine. And we'll see you again tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day.